Welcome to the Pupterra Adventures Guide for the Trans-Zion West to East Guide, but we don't go all the way to the east. We stop in Zion Canyon for a 4-day, 3-night trip, a total of about 40 miles that we would rate moderate. The tricky thing about this hike is planning everything out. So we say plan well in advance, and we'll talk throughout the course of this video about things that you need to take into consideration when planning your trip. We stayed at the South Campground right in Zion Canyon the night before and the night after the hike. Securing these spots might be the hardest part of your whole trip. You have to book exactly 14 days in advance of the night that you want when you're booking your reservation. We had 9 guys at the ready on the computer the moment they opened up, and we didn't even get a site one of the nights. The second thing you want to plan is shuttle service. We used Red Rock Shuttle, and they were phenomenal. Now, if you're wondering if you can do this trip, the answer is probably, if you're in decent shape. We had 9 of us ranging from the age 22 to 72. The first leg of the trip that we had was from Lee Pass to Laverkin Creek, and we had Site 8. It was by far the easiest leg of the trip. This is a beautiful hike, and for quite some time you're walking right along Laverkin Creek, but you have to be careful because you can't drink the water out of that creek. We had a lot of debate when planning for this trip on what you could drink, what you couldn't drink. We called the Zion office many times, and the bottom line is you want to stick with the freshwater springs, and you're going to want to check in advance to make sure that they're running and plan water accordingly. We were able to secure Laverkin Creek Site 8, and we loved it. It was absolutely beautiful. If you have a choice when booking your wilderness permit, go for sites 7 through sites 12. 7 has a little spring on it, and the further up you go, the closer you are to Beatty Springs and further down the trail. Day 2 will likely be your most challenging day, based on the fact that it's long. If you go to Wildcat Canyon, you're going to hike over 14 miles, and then there's a decent elevation gain. The total ups is over 4,000 feet. Now, while you watch us cross this creek, let's talk a little bit about wilderness permits. We had to secure 3 wilderness permits for this trip: Laverkin Creek, Wildcat Canyon at Large, and West Rim sites. To get those permits, you need to have a Zion Wilderness Permit account, and then they open up 2 months in advance. But even more specifically, on the 5th day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the month before the month that you want to take the trip. The bottom line, you want to have all hands on deck for all parties of your crew trying to book at the same time.
Not this year, Jeff.
We all really loved the Hop Valley segment of the trip because you're walking along the creek and crossing over the creek every once in a while, and it was very easy and flat the whole way. We were there in late May, and the creek was really low. There were no times that we had to get into any water above our ankles, but a couple times I was glad that I did have waterproof boots at this point in the trip. There's something important about day 2 that you need to take into consideration as well. Once you leave Laverkin Creek and pass Beatty Springs, there are no more freshwater springs until you get to Wildcat Canyon. So what we did was we cached water. The night before the trip, we drove up to Hop Valley Trailhead, put a few gallons of water in the brush, put our names on it and the date we were going to pick it up, and then we stocked up there with water halfway through the hike. After you leave the Hop Valley Trailhead, you're going to be climbing for about the next 6 miles, but it's pretty slow and pretty gradual, so it's really not that bad. Now, your permit for Wildcat Canyon is at-large camping, so there's not specific sites, and you're not supposed to camp within a quarter mile of the Wildcat Spring. After 14 miles, you're really going to want water, so you're going to want to fill up, and then you're going to have to make a choice. Go back about 3/4 of a mile to a clearing if you have a tent, or go forward about another 1.5 to 2 miles to find a clearing. I had a bivvy, so it was easier for me to find just a little spot off to the side of the trail, maybe a quarter mile back from the spring, but everyone else walked backwards that 3/4 of a mile and camped up the trail a ways. For day 3, we had about 11 miles ahead of us, And along that trail between Wildcat Canyon to West Rim, there's a few springs, but we really wanted to make sure that we filled up at Wildcat Spring because you don't know if the other ones are going to be running, and this was the best running out of all of them. I think the safest recommendation I could give is to definitely filter the water and then treat it with iodine tablets or water purification tablets. But no one got sick and most people just filtered. Now remember when I told you that from Wildcat Springs you could hike forward about 2 miles? Well, that's what Tony did. We had no idea where he stopped, but I was able to meet up with him, and then Tony and I carried on for the rest of the day. On this segment of the hike, when you're going from Wildcat Canyon to West Rim, there are 2 sections with some pretty steep elevation gains. The good news is they're not very long sections, so just take your time, take a lot of breaks, and you'll be up at the top in no time. After the second climb, you're gonna get to a spot where you can go right for the Canyon Rim Trail, or you can go left for Telephone Canyon. Both of those routes are gonna get you to West Rim. The Canyon Rim Trail is supposed to be the more scenic of the 2, and then the Telephone Canyon is a little bit easier, but not as pretty. Once you get to the West Rim area, that's when you start seeing Zion Canyon, and it was absolutely beautiful. We had site 1, and since we all left at different times, we all got there at different times, but the site was huge. We were able to get together at the end of the day, and it was just a beautiful place to set up for the night. The West Rim site came with one big bonus. There were deer everywhere. These deer would just walk right through the site. They would hang out like they didn't even care that we were around, and it was just nice to have them walking around, and it kept us entertained for quite some time. The final day of this trip is the shortest out of every day that you're hiking, and it's kind of like the grand finale. You have absolutely breathtaking views the whole way. You're definitely going to want to take your time in this section, get your camera out, and stop along the way to enjoy the scenery. On your way down, you pass right through Angel's Landing, and you don't have to go all the way up. But if you've never done it before and you're comfortable with heights, I would strongly suggest taking the trek to the top. After you pass Angel's Landing, you're going to be taking pretty much a paved but very steep descent all the way down. It's here that you're going to be reminded of just how popular Zion Canyon actually is and how many visitors are down in the canyon. That's when you're really going to appreciate the last 4 days that you've had, where you've passed very little people in the beautiful Zion wilderness. Once you get down to the grotto, you can hop on a shuttle just using your wilderness permit. So make sure everyone in your group takes a picture of that before you take off. That shuttle will take you right back to the visitor center, and from there you can walk to the South Campground, Watchman Campground, or any other accommodations that you set up in Zion Canyon. Overall, we would strongly recommend this trip for the seasoned backpacker or someone who's just getting into it. The most difficult part about this entire trip is planning and coordinating all the things that you need to reserve and the bookings that you need to have. We do hope that you found this useful if you're thinking of taking a trip out to Zion National Park. To see new adventures as we post them, please subscribe to the channel and check out our website, Pupterra.com, for other useful information that can help make it easier for you to find your next adventure. Thanks for stopping by.
For today.
Yeah.